I had started out with a book review on the book Martyrdom in Milwaukee. We've had quite a few mass killings in the last years. And I had spoken with the author about the book, and on page 114 and 115 he discussed Terry's problem of not being able to dig at the core issue. But in talking to the author, I'd asked him about the sermon that Terry had got upset about. And Tom had said, well, you know, in the book he did talk about tithing, or in the sermon he talked about tithing, and he used the book of Tobit. And I said to Tom, the book of Tobit, that would be like a Jew using the Quran for some doctrine. And Tom looked at me and says, I know. I said, that's just hypocrisy. What did the people say? He just kind of looked to the ground and said, well, nothing, you know. And hence we get at the root cause of why people cannot get to some of the root issues that bother them. There are leaders, people getting up giving messages and doctrine and insight, you know, no matter what field, who basically are hypocrites. They're not dealing honestly with the subject matter, and they're extracting time and attention and honor and money from people. I like to call it the Madam Butterfly effect. They want you to dress up in a certain way and behave a certain way so they can be the man. They can be the head. They can be the person in charge. They can play God. They can play Jesus, or they can play Father. You know, they're the head. They're the boss. Madam Butterfly effect. It's a facade. It's a hypocrisy. It's a lie. And people go along with it ignorantly, willingly, depends on what it is. But in some cases, people get hurt. Well, a lot of people get hurt in those cases. And then all of a sudden, the facade goes away. And what do they do with their hurt? What do they do with their anger? What do they do with all the things that they've lost? Time, money, girlfriends, whatever. Because somebody who said, they the man, they're in charge, took advantage of them, lied to them, intentionally or accidentally. I mean, in the movie Braveheart, the king's representative killed his girlfriend, so he came in and he killed that king's representative. Later in the movie, and they charge another guy, and this guy said, I had the right of the king, and the guy says, well, I had the right of a husband, so they chopped him to pieces. You know, he waited. He was enraged over something that, and the guy who was in charge, you know, he had authority, he had power, he had position, he could force what he wanted to take place, even though it was unjust. And as soon as the restraints came off and things were level, man to man, boom, chopped them apart. And I think about this when it comes to these mass killings, and actually a lot of violence. And it's how many of these people have gone through so much hurt and other various things that go on, you know, whether accidentally or whether under the guise of leadership or doctrine or whatever. And then all of a sudden the painkiller wears off, the facade wears off, or it just becomes too much. And they blow up. And that would answer a lot of the reasons why you get the mass killings. People go along with this facade. You know, it's like I heard some girls, women actually at work, say, hey, just date them until you get what you want, then dump them. I've heard guys say that too. You know, people in our society, well, actually it's always gone on. You know, whether they use the office of a minister, the president, or the king, or some position to extort stuff from people. And then they just hope that the person whom they've deceived, hurt, you know, took advantage of, doesn't blow up on them. And I think a lot of the mass killings are that. Young men who have had stuff happen to them, it screws with their minds, it messes with them. They get all twisted, they don't know how to handle it. And eventually they just take it out. I had a friend who had a dog that got hurt, right? Got smacked by a car. The dog was injured, the guy picked it up to try to help it. the dog bit him. He got all sorts of cuts and bruises and bites from the dog he was trying to help. It wasn't that the dog was mad at him. It's the dog was hurting, and he picked him up to try to help him, and oh well, you're in the nearest thing in the vicinity when I hurt, so therefore I'm going to associate the pain with you, and I'm going to hurt you. Or like in the case of Braveheart, they actually went after the person who caused the hurt. There's a whole lot of variable factors that go into these mass killings. But after having read that book and knowing some inside information, I'm pretty much sure if you go in, it looks like the same scenario playing out over and over and over again, just in different settings. The Apostle James, he wrote, where does all these fightings and wars come from you? Why? Well, isn't it because you have all this lust for things, this desire to have, and you don't go about getting it the right way, so there's all these wars and killings, right? Well, men are known for, especially men, I want power, I want control, I want to gather all the dirt and jewels to myself. They don't go about it the right way. They cheat, lie, steal, kill. And then when people figure it out, they do like the Arabs have been doing overseas. They just revolt. Throw the people out. Well, that's part of it. So, like we've seen throughout human history, people revolt. They revolt over oppression, they revolt over injustices, they revolt just so they have liberty. Human beings have needs, we all understand that. Get older, you may need glasses. You may need glasses when you're younger. Everybody needs fresh air, oxygen, work, companionships, rest. People have needs. You don't get your needs met, something goes wrong. You don't have your nutritional needs met, you're malnutrition. If you don't have your nutritional needs met, well, then you become malnourished and your body doesn't function or develop correctly. If you don't have your other needs met, well, then you don't develop, or you can't handle life, or you just plain go kooky. So, or you just leave society and revolt against your current situations and go find some place where your needs are met. So everybody has their needs, and these people who go kooky and go into the mass shootings, maybe part of the problem is they just didn't have their needs met, and like the tiger in the cage that gets all taken out of nature, taken out of their environment where their needs are met. They're put into a place where hey, everybody else is, they have the attention, the time, and all that they need, but the tiger doesn't have its needs met. And so, like in the rest of nature, you have this struggle for having your needs met. And the humans thought that the tiger was safe and secure, and so they tortured the tiger, and they taunted the tiger. But, if you look at the specs, the tiger cage wasn't built well enough to keep the tiger inside, so the tiger jumped out, attacked the people. In the tiger's reality, this was just fun and games. And in the human being's reality, well, hey, that had been fun and games until the tiger broke through the barrier. So it is with these mass shootings. You got ambiverts, and you've got introverts, and you've got extroverts, and you've got male and female, old and young. And everybody's out there trying to get their needs met, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, naturally. And some people, just like cars, some cars are built well, some cars aren't built so well. If you do some things to some cars, they break. It's just things wear out. When I've looked into these shootings and you start analyzing things like that, you're like, yeah, okay. Eventually people get fed up. I mean, hey, the Americans revolted against the British because they were put in a box and their needs weren't met. And so it is, People, society has its demands and its social cues, and each individual has its needs, and eventually things come into conflict and they blow up if everything's just not right. And then people, why? Well, that's because we're ignorant about, what people's needs are and what their history is, and, whether they're having a good day or a bad day, and, what you did to them one day, that passes. The next day somebody does the exact same thing, and, they can't handle it, so they blow up. So actually there's really not that great big mystery about all these shootings anymore, if you think about it in terms like that. It's just like, what was the exact cause? Well, needs weren't met, things weren't dealt with, and eventually you get, there's old sayings, the straw that broke the camel's back. There used to be lights in the car where, the lights would show up, and, that meant you need to check your oil or check this or check that, your car didn't talk to you. And they called them idiot lights because, only an idiot would ignore the fact that the light was on. And we have a society today that, hey, we think that we can live any way we want to live and treat everybody the way, we just don't care, in today's society. And eventually, things blow up. People blow up. Things fail. Bridges fail. Why did it fail? Well, there's all these laws in nature. And if you break the laws and you put too much weight on stuff, it gives. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. People need rest, people need work, people need companionship. Actually in Romans 1 it talks about, people need to honor God. People need to realize that there's laws that govern the spiritual being. People need to realize that there's laws that govern your physical being, your psychological being, and psychology deals with some of that. But, eventually, if we don't keep up with everything, things break. Things wear out naturally. And how do I put it? Once you've examined some of these, they get to be a pattern. The FBI profiles things. So the experts know. They can look at these systems. They look at all these shootings. Yeah, there's a certain profile that goes into that. The only thing people are probably questioning is, how do we get to those people before they blow up? Do we take away all their guns? Well, that might solve a couple of them. But, society is running in such a pattern that more and more people, more and more things are just breaking down. And until we stop and rest and actually are honest and truthful about what's going wrong, they'll continue and they'll increase, just like autism, just like cancers. It's all the same stuff. We're not obeying the laws of nature and of nature's God, the stuff that the country is founded on, and we're violating people's liberties, and you can only cheat. Well, actually, you can't cheat Mother Nature. That's the saying. You can't cheat the laws of nature or of nature's God. When you get right down to it, you're not dealing in the truth. You're cheating nature, cheating the laws, and eventually things blow.